Good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, everybody. It's 8:30, and we'll call this morning's meeting to order. Our first item is to approve the agenda. I see no agenda additions.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? See, I did have a comment on that one application. I'm sorry, I just thought of it now. It's the one that it gives an address of Barnesville, but then it gives the county as Wilkin. I'm not sure if that's the applicant's residence or...
For the Trojan takedown?
Yes.
It says City Barnesville Township, Humboldt.
Yeah, but there's another...
Oh, well, it's 100th Street South, I would guess, and the city limits is just...
Okay, so it's actually, yeah, here's the, and I just want a clarification because it says it's the County of Wilkin. City of Barnesville, Minnesota, County of Wilkin.
Mr. Chair, I did get a message saying that it is Humboldt Township. I got an email that it is in Humboldt Township.
So that would be Clay County. Yeah, so I just to correct this,
So
that application should be corrected to read Clay County, not Wilkin. All right, so with that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We'll move on to our employee recognition. And we have one today. Mr. Holman? David? Good morning, David. Good morning. So David has 20 years of service with Clay County today. We want to thank him for your 20 years of outstanding and dedicated service to Clay County. Thank you. Congratulations. And also, Amy would like to say a few words.
We'd just like to thank David for all his hard work and dedication in our licensing department. He plays a major role in collaborating with our adult and disability unit, as well as providing resources to our community agencies. So thanks, David.
Okay, now next we have an important award to give up. I'm going to call on Lieutenant Empting, Mark Empting, to explain what's going on. Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, for having us this morning. It's my privilege to nominate Deputy Jeff Lee for the Life Saving Award as described in the Clay County Sheriff's Department policy. At approximately 3:43 p.m. on October 2nd, 2017, Deputy Jeff Lee responded to a medical assist call in the city of Dilworth. The Red River Regional Dispatch Center informed responding officers that there was a male at a residence that was not conscious and not breathing. Deputy Lee and Dilworth officers arrived within minutes and began life-saving efforts. Deputy Lee began CPR while Dilworth officers were applying the AED and administering other life-saving measures. FM ambulance arrived on scene and continued with life-saving efforts, and the male was able to regain consciousness while they were still on scene. Dilworth Police Chief Ty Sharp indicated that Deputy Lee's efforts helped save the man's life. The key factors which the officers accomplished to obtain this success were the quick response time, the proper assessment of the victim's condition, and the correct application of the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Above all, the most important factor in this incident was the officers' ability to work together as a team. Our department policy states that to receive a life-saving award, the officer must distinguish themselves by an act that contributes to the saving of a person's life. Without a doubt, Deputy Lee's actions assisted in saving this man's life. So, Jeff, thank you for your efforts and congratulations. Thank you.
I did want to say, in law enforcement, we usually don't have the fun things to do, so it's a privilege to do.
Thank you. All right, Mark? Yes.
Yep. And also, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I would just like to take a couple minutes to explain why some of our deputies here look like they're a little scruffier and their razors may have broken for the month of November. Except maybe a couple, but we are partaking in No Shave November this year, and our deputies are able to pay a fee to grow a beard, a goatee, or a mustache. And the proceeds are going to go to our 5 local school districts here in Clay County, DGF, Hawley, Ulen, Hitterdal, Barnesville, and Moorhead. The administration of those school districts are able to use those funds and proceeds to buy kids warm weather clothing, whether it's jackets, gloves, hats, boots, scarves, or what have you. To date, we have collected so far $1,050, and I hope to see that to continue to grow for the kids of Clay County. So this is our way of kind of giving back to the county that has supported us so much over the past few years, and especially as we look across the streets here to show how they've supported us. Now we can support them. So.
Very good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Once again, congratulations, Jeff, on your award. Okay, with that, we'll move on to citizens to be heard. Let these get some kids there. Okay, once again, we'll ask for citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the bills and vouchers.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. We have the minutes from October 10th and 17th.
Move to approve.
A motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. We'll move into our 835 item. That's a request approval of resolution for tax forfeit sale list. Nancy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we are fortunate this year to only have one property to sell on our tax forfeit sale, which is really, really nice. The difference between this and what we normally do is this is a property that's within the Moorhead city limits, and they do want the property torn down. Don't want it sitting out there. So what we are doing with this property is selling it on a contract for deed. Jenny did up a contract for deed. It's for like 3 months, I believe. They'll pay 50% down when they meet the requirements of tearing the building down, and Moorhead is happy with what they've done. Then they can pay the other 50% and we'll get them a state deed. That's about the only way we can enforce the tear down part of it, so.
Okay. And that contract was written by
Jenny,
our
yeah.
attorney's office? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Support
I'll move
wishes.
to approve the resolution.
And
Second.
Okay. Question, so the time period for the original owners to come back, that's over and done with?
No, they could still redeem up until our tax forfeit sale.
Okay.
They could.
So this sale would, the tear down is part of the sale
Correct.
agreement? Okay.
Correct, yes.
All right. Okay. Any further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
All right, next we have request of approval of resolution of County Services, County Veterans Office Operation Enhancement Grant.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kurt. All right.
Brought for you today once again, the annual enhancement grant for approval and really signature for the 12-5 that the state gives us, so. Now you have to close out 17s and this is for 18.
Kurt, does that dollar amount ever change, or is it?
It actually has. It was lower, 7,500 I saw back in the day, and then eventually, probably 2 years now, 3 years, it's probably been at 12.5, so I suppose it could go away too, so.
Yeah, we wouldn't want that.
No, no. But nice to have for, my intent for this one is the training in Nevada and then some IT upgrades. They're about 5 years old, the screens and
Okay.
computers, and I've talked to them about that. So it allows us to purchase things for operations and training, so comes in handy.
I was just curious if, I don't know how that grant application works and how, if you request a certain dollar amount or,
No, it's just upfront. I mean, they just tell you
okay, they tell you what
Yeah.
you can apply for.
in the agreement.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so then you apply for that. And hopefully you get that.
I'll move to approve the resolution.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, it's the same sign. Motion carried, and now you also want to have permission to go on,
Reno,
hmm?
Reno, Nevada,
Reno,
June
Nevada.
2nd through the 8th is the national training this year.
And that's for two in your office to go?
Yes.
Okay.
Myself and Jennifer, and then we, of course, that we get all our CEUs, then we gotta go to every training.
Yeah, that's
Around here.
important to go to.
Yeah, a lot of networking.
Mhm.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Have a great day.
Kurt, I just
All right.
want to thank you for your presentation the other morning at the Joint
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
It's clear to those people around the table, they really appreciate the presence in the community that you bring in
Yeah.
your office. And I know that I can speak for all of us on the board that we're really appreciative of the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you very
So,
much.
along with that, I agree with Commissioner Mojo, and I want to thank you, but you had brought up something quite interesting or shocking to me, or in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the issue on the homeless veteran issue in Clay County.
Right.
And I think your words that morning is, we've nipped that in the bud. I think you're something to that
Yeah,
effect.
you know, we've got the communication amongst the, my office, the VA, and the homeless shelters
Okay.
to arrange resources.
Okay.
And when they say ground zero, that means they have a roof over their head. It could be a shelter, it could be their own place,
So we've improved our system and our processes.
most definitely.
That helps, there should be no veteran not having a roof over their head in Clay
Most
County.
definitely.
That is really good news.
It is a tremendous effort amongst all, you know, who has the resources and who, the identification is key in everything. Even with our vet court, you know, do you have a vet in the judicial system? Let's identify those and get them help, so.
So if any citizen in Clay County knows of a veteran who might not have a proper housing,
That's right.
have them contact your office, right?
Most definitely.
All right.
And if we can't help them, there's other resources that can,
Very good. Well, that's,
in Clay County.
well, thank you for your efforts in that regard.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good.
All right.
Okay, our 8:45 item is a request to fill vacant position for the corrections officer. Julie, we're back again. Brian, did you want to?
Mr. Chair, it's not an addition, it's just a letter or a change here. It's officers instead of officer.
Okay.
I had another resignation on Friday. We have one of our officers become a deputy for Wilkin County.
Oh,
So when we hire great people and give them some experience, they leave us. So
okay.
I am requesting to fill 2 full-time vacancies for the jail. Both are budgeted positions that we have. We do have a salary calculation worksheet done for the one. There's some savings, about $2,600. And we feel that it'd be probably the same savings for the second officer. He's only been here a couple of years, so he's not a vested employee with pay or anything like that, so.
All right. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion?
Are there any cost savings?
Yeah, be similar to what the 2,600 that we had figured out for our last vacancy.
We didn't
I didn't
get
get
that
that.
this time in our
I'm
packet.
sorry.
Okay.
My bad. And then Darren didn't have time to do the second one. I got this on
Yeah.
Friday, so
Right.
that would be on me.
No, that's fine. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Julie, I think on, Brian, is it later this month, we're getting a update on the projects? Is that-
Yes, next week,
That's
Mr. Chair.
next week.
Or, yes.
I'm wondering, thinking out loud here, when would be a good time to hear a little bit more from your transition team on where they are? Is that something that we could fit in a little bit next week, just,
How much time would you like?
just
Five
so the
minutes?
board gets a little,
Sure.
you know, because that's a,
Big piece. of
it's a
the
big
puzzle.
piece, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of dollars involved, so
Yeah.
it's important, I think, that our board stays updated on
All
that.
right,
so.
I'll get something prepared and I'll get it to Clean so we can get on the agenda.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
you bet. Okay. Speaking of the correctional facility, item number 5, consideration for boiler plant replacement. We're not replacing the boiler plant, are we?
Well, maybe. Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, before Julie leaves, her transition plan to acclimate to that new facility is even got now Steve Larson saying, well, you know, I've talked to Julie and
Well,
this
he needs one?
transition team really is working, so we have to thank Julie for that, so anyway.
Good,
that's-
well, okay.
I think it is a good plan, because if you are looking at a new facility and new policies and new changes, we have to be talking about that early on as well.
Steve
so-
can learn from them then for.
Absolutely.
If provided that moves along.
That's right.
Good morning, Brian, and
Good morning. Wasn't that good news to bring in? Well, what you have before you is, we have been talking about this now for some months, and it's a request to approve a change order for $586,000 to put in two new 250-horse boilers in the heating plant. And we'll take you back just a little bit. We've talked about this quite a bit, but when we planned the new correctional facility, we planned to use the heating plant to also heat the new jail as well as all of the other buildings. And when we started digging into it, found that the system that is being used right now is two 500-horse boilers for it, and we rotate them back and forth. They are 46 years old. After further checking, they have a restricted pipe coming out of it, and there needs to be an updating on those 500-horse boilers, the burner of them, the inside coils, and things along those lines. So, and we've been struggling with this for a few years, that 500-horse boiler in the summertime is way too much to be utilizing. It's a waste of energy. We've been thinking about going to a smaller boiler for 8 months out of the year. We'll save a lot of energy. Here is an opportunity for us to now remove the oldest, well, they're both 46 years old, but we've done some updates on the burners and things of the one. Now, what we plan to do with this is remove one of the 500-horse boilers, the one that hasn't had the updates, replace it with two 250-horse boilers, and they will rotate, again, most of the year, but in the deepest winter, coldest days, we need about 450 horsepower. We would have the two new 250s, which would handle it, that's 500, but we'll still keep one of the 500-horse boilers as a backup to our system. So we'll have plenty of energy for the Family Service Center, the Juvenile Center, the expansion of the Juvenile Center, the new correctional facility will all be taken care of with this new system. It's time to update it, and it comes at a time when we're adding 80,000 square feet to it as well. So we've really spent a lot of time on this. We've hopefully updated you folks on this, that this was coming down the pike. We have budgeted for it. We do have the funds within our expected expenditures to do this, and certainly answer any questions that you may have on it.
I think when even though this refers to as a $586,000 change order, the original plan called for $375,000. That was from the beginning. We knew that we were going to have to do that amount. So I look at this as a change of 210 versus what we originally planned. But that 210 still, with some of the other savings we've done in this project, we're still within our financial plan and cost estimates that we had for this, right?
That is correct. And another really important thing here, even if we wouldn't have added the new correctional facility, if we would have done this with the heating unit, it would have been about a 12-year payback, even on, with no additions or anything, which is a pretty good payback in a heating facility. So even without adding that, we would have paid for itself with energy savings in about 12 years. That's pretty darn good.
And these new boilers also allow to change over to, what were they talking about? Where it was going to a water-based heating system or something?
Oh, yes, yes.
Which now, right before, these current boilers don't have the ability to do that, the new technology?
That's correct.
Okay.
And to take you back just a little bit on it, when those boilers were put in, that was a hospital, and they used steam for the heat, and now we're using hot water.
Right.
And of course, that's the reason for the restrictions on the piping and things. And now Joe is saying, Joe couldn't be here today, he's done a lot of work on this.
I know he has, yeah.
He's hunting today, but he's got to get his priorities straight. But there will be another change of I don't know if it's hot water to something else, but yes, there is a change coming down the pipe according to the boiling standards, and I can't describe exactly what that is. But these new boilers will be adapted to make that change as well.
And one last thing, in addition to the two new boilers, you mentioned keeping one of the old boilers, but that boiler, the reason we're keeping that one is it's already had some significant dollars put into
The burner unit.
To the burner unit, which
About
is
$80-some thousand,
which is the
right, yes.
main, so that should still be good for several years.
It should be as a backup, because they
yeah.
service it regularly and things. And think about along the lines of our max capacity is expected at 450 horsepower, but we'll still have 1,000 horsepower over there. So that's good to have a complete backup system.
Well, you could have a 250 go down, too.
Absolutely, yep.
You said
Commissioner Gross.
we already had a lot of 300,000 for it, something like that. Did we subtract that out of the thing then, or the five? Well,
well-
we're adding 586.
No, we had a line item in the budget, as a matter of fact, I can, this document here, and I can give one to each if you want to. I got plenty of copies here. If you look, this has been our working document for construction costs and revenues and updated periodically. And if you'll notice down under other jail projects, heating issues, that number prior to this always read 375,000. So we've updated that now to the 586. So there always was $375,000 planned for this project. But what Brian is proposing now under this, we actually came up with an option 3. And option 3 is this one with the two boilers, which is financially way better for the county. So, but if you look at that, it still falls within the total amount of the project, because we've had savings in other areas.
Well, I agree with the project. I don't know that. It just looks to me like we're adding another 586, and you're saying we're actually only adding 200 something like that.
210.
I think.
Well, we had budgeted the 375 before.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, I agree with you, Commissioner Gross. It is a little confusing, because if we would not have intended to use the old boiler plant for a heating source for this new jail, that they would have designed it with a new heating system in it, and according to the architects and construction engineers, it would have cost us at least that much money. So had we not used the idea of using the old boiler, it would have been in the original bid. And that would have been a lot cleaner or easier to understand, because you're putting up a building, you want to heat it and cool it and different things. But the advantage of this is we are updating our heating plant that services all the other buildings as well. So this is really a plus. It's confusing when it comes back in and has to be added in as an addition. But at that time, we didn't know the condition of the heating plant, and they had done a quick survey of it and felt that it met the needs. And after we started digging into it a little bit more and realizing that system, they said the average heating system runs 25 years, and ours are at 46. So they're slightly over the average. So it's time to replace them. And we didn't know that at the time the original design of the structure was being done. So that's when we started going down the road, and Commissioner Campbell was talking about, he said, we need to plan for this. And we thought we could do it for $375, and we could have. In fact, we could do it for probably about $200, and use the old system, do some updatings and things. But we felt in our examination and studying with the engineers and things that this is a much better way to go for the long run. We recover the costs a lot quicker, and it's just a better way to go. So that's why it's $586,000 instead of, say, $250,000 to $375,000 like we kind of planned coming out of the chute. So you're right, it is a change. It's an addition.
I just have a question. Does this supply the hot water feed as well to the campus?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Commissioner Pratt? Well, we went through this every possible way, I think, and I think it's the right, timing-wise, I think it worked out really well, because if we would have had more issues a few years ago with this system, we would have done something with it, and then we'd be stuck, so I think timing-wise, it worked out really well, and it's cost-effective, it's going to save money in the long run, and it isn't the issue, we probably won't be spending any more for heat with the new building, with this new system, than we were previously, so it's...
And we have a bigger building.
Yeah.
That's amazing to add an 80,000
it's-
square foot building and not expect to spend more on energy.
Yeah,
That's
So it's a big plus, I
It's a big
think,
deal.
for the county. So-
Joel isn't here, but I think the numbers that he gave us in some of our committees, where we were looking at a $30,000 to $50,000 a year potential savings on efficiency.
That would be about right. Yeah, that would be
Because,
about right.
That brings it to your 12-year payback.
That's
And-
exactly right.
And also keep in mind, in doing this, it's all attributed to the correctional facility project, so Clay County will also get a rebate on the sales tax on the $586,000. So, so that's a significant benefit too for.
Mr. Chair, I think the sales tax is about $26,000 on this, so.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 7, updating the boilers in the county power plant for the proposed pricing of $586,681.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
And maybe just an important note here too. This is the first change order to the guaranteed maximum price that we've had on this. We've been able to work within our system. And frankly, there's still money in the contingencies on this, so we may end, and this would even be absorbed within those contingencies, possibly. But we felt it was a big enough change that we needed to do this.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Chair.
All right. All right, our next item is the consideration for approval of the commitment of a $500,000 for Moorhead grade separation. I take it Dr. Zimmerman can't be here today?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, so, but Brian, if you want to set the stage for this, and Dave is here to,
Yeah.
I know we've had some discussion with this in highway tracking. I don't know that we've talked about it here too much, but.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And a short time back, you approved a letter of support going in on their grant, and you signed that, and we sent it over to the city. And then Mr. Zimmerman contacted me here week and a half ago, and I contacted Dave, and you've got my memo in your packet that Dave said, yes, the last time they put in an application for this 11th Street underpass, overpass, whichever it's, is it an overpass? Underpass, yeah, I thought that's what it was. Normally you think of overpass, yeah. When they had submitted that grant application, Bob said that the county had, in their letter, offered to cost share of $500,000. And I talked with Dave, and Dave said, yes, that was the case. It was in the last submittal, and he felt it was a very good project to cost share on, and I think it's millions of dollars.
Absolutely, we're talking in excess of $20 million.
Yeah.
You know, the very south leg of the project, I guess, is on the county state aid highway. It's County Road 3 or 11th Street. You can see from the drawing there that it does extend with the tiebacks further south in our roadway. I tried to take a look. You know, we really don't have any funds planned or dedicated, obviously, to the project, but I think if we take a look at the time schedule that they're in, it would be a state aid eligible cost share, which rather than trying to find levy dollars out of my budget, it might be easier to use state aid funds. We just request $500,000. It'd be real similar to what we did in Glendon with that signal that we did in Glendon there. I think our share for that was like around $160,000. MnDOT did the project, and then we just cost shared that with them, so it'd be real similar to that.
Well, I think it's important that, I think there's a little bit of time here before anything's ever going to be done anyway.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I think it would be an opportunity for you to try to see how those funds would fit in with a 5-year plan, and, and I think we can make that work. I think it's an important enough project. You know, that's a real safety deal with that $500,000 on the part of Clay County is an insignificant amount compared to the safety issues that are related to it. So I don't know what we need. So Bob's asking for approval to show the commitment on the part of Clay County.
That's correct.
I would like to make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right,
Thank you, Mr.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Brian, you just might as well just stay up here. All right, so we have our 9 o'clock item is a request to accept offer for capital improvement bonds and adopt a resolution approving sale of bonds, and this is for our law enforcement center. And so hopefully we have some good news this morning.
Well, good morning again, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. We have Todd Hagan here today instead of Shelley. Shelley is on vacation, Eldridge, with Ellers, and they did conduct their bond sale yesterday, and we did include some documentation in your packet, and I would like to replace that with now the current numbers, and Todd will go through the sale and things, and then we'll finish it up with your familiarity to the spreadsheet that Lori has put together in regards to the bond payments and the revenue sources and things like that. So let me pass this out to replace the one that came out of your packet.
Good morning, Todd, and welcome to Clay County. And
thank you, Chair.
I'll let you maybe walk us through this.
I will. Great to be here. Chair, board members, Todd Hagan from Ellers and Associates. Shelley office is right next to me, so we do a lot of work together, and I'm happy to be up here. It's winter up here, I see. A little bit down in the cities, but not as much as here. So I Lori and Brian on putting this bond issue together with Shelley. And like Brian had said, we took bids yesterday up to 10:30 in the morning. And so the winning bidder kind of holds on to it and waits for county board meetings to come up the next morning. So they're waiting for me to see if this is a go or not. It's obvious, like Brian had said, it's to finance the law enforcement center. It's that $16 million bond we've all been talking about. The credit rating we got on this, just want to talk about that first. In the packets is a pre-sale, or sale day report, excuse me. It's got a summary of what happened yesterday when the bids came in. There's a final bid tabulation in the packet as well. We'll go through those. There's a final sources and uses and bond schedule that is set if you so choose to accept this bid. There's a rating report from Standard & Poor's, again, that talks about your credit rating. There's a bond buyer index graph there that shows that we're at a pretty low interest rate environment in the last 30 years. You can see the graph still going down. It's kind of jittering up a little bit and up and down, kind of like what we've all been hearing what's happening out there, but it's at a very low historic rate still in the global aspect of this, so you're bonding at a great time. And then there's a bond resolution that was drafted by Dorsey and Whitney Bond Council in there, and that's what you would consider for adoption if you wanted to go forward with the low bid here. So just to kind of back up a little bit, your credit rating, you maintain the AA stable underlying rating, the county rating. It's a strong, stable, very solid is what they said, the analysts said after our call. We also did get the AA plus credit enhancement rating. This qualifies for state guarantee. It's a law enforcement center, and under state law, we can actually get onto or piggyback onto the state's AA plus rating. So it's a notch above yours, so that helped with this whole sale of these bonds. Still have to make your payment, but if you don't, they'll make it for you, but they'll find a way to get it back. Okay, that's what the state says. So it's good for the bondholder. So you got kind of a parachute there. You've got a fallback. So the rating report is there, and I think the cut to the chase on that is just maintain your real healthy reserves and not to cut into those too much. And if you do, please replace them to keep it up to that level they talk about in the rating report. And I think that's where that stands. Everything else seems to be just fine. So we package up this bond deal at $16 million, and if you look here on what we got for bids. We received 7, and that's a big deal. 7 is a lot of bids in the world of bond bids. Yesterday I had a couple other bond sales for some smaller cities. We received 2 on one of them, 3 on another. You get 5. 7 is terrific. 10 is over the top. So 7 is wonderful for a bond issue. It's large. It's a shorter term bond issue. It attracted a lot of bids. And with your AA rating and the AA plus guarantee behind it, you can see that you attracted bids from all over the place here in the nation. So Baird out of Milwaukee, our friends out there in Milwaukee, we're the low bid at the 2.67% rate, and that's about 31 basis points less than what Shelley showed in the pre-sale report a month ago. So that's 0.31% less, and that's great. And if you see the whole list underneath Baird, they all worked real hard to get that rate. There's over 34 or 33, 34 other syndicates underneath them, and you can kind of see, I mean, they all talked about this yesterday and got together and packaged this up for you. I mean, Edward Jones is in there, Doherty, Oppenheimer, Northland. You just kind of go down the list. It's kind of interesting and it's amazing how fast they can get this stuff going and get all these folks together to bid on the bonds. So the second bid out of the 7 then was USB Financial out of New York. Again, a good reach out to New York. Piper Jaffray out of Minneapolis. And then Jeffries out of New York, and Janie Montgomery out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. JP Morgan out of New York, Fifth Third Securities out of Cincinnati, Ohio then. So, you know, the spread between or amongst, I guess, all 7 of those, when you look at it from an interest cost difference, it's about a little over $130,000 and some change between the low bidder and the high bidder. And that really is the reason why you competitively bid these bonds, because you could have just went and negotiated with one of these. You just don't know what you're going to get. So this is an easy bond to sell out there, highly rated, guaranteed. It's for a good cause, right? The law enforcement center. You're a solid credit, and that's why you get those low bids. But that's just kind of the pitch for selling these competitively if you can. And we'll tell you if you can, you can't, because this isn't always the case. So it's this great bond sale. Again, I was just kind of, you know, backing up here too a little bit on the rating. Lori and Brian were on that call with Shelley and me, and it was just it was a good rating call with the folks out of Chicago. It went smooth, and all the answers were coming, and not really any follow-up, so to speak, on that. So it was a pretty good story to tell here for Clay County. So if you notice on this Baird bid here, this winning bid, they actually gave you more money than what you needed. So this is where the confusing part comes in. With rates this low interest rate environment, in order to get a winning bid here, these folks to be competitive, a lot of the times they'll give you more money than what you need, and that comes from their customers on the other side in order to have a bond that's got a higher interest rate than a 1.3 on it. In case interest rates go up, they need to market this rate. So in exchange for a higher interest rate here that you see, if you see the interest rate column, actually these customers are giving like Baird money to be able to hold like a 5% bond or a 2% bond, because there's more value to that when rates go up. So that's where you get this premium that's generated, so you get more money than what you need. Typically, a municipality, if it's not much of a premium, will just sort of give it back and lower the bond issue down, right, which burns that yield down, back down to that lower rate, because you have less debt that you're paying off, right, at that little higher interest rate. Other municipalities will keep all of it, just because they maybe have some cost overruns or whatever, things that they weren't foreseeing between pre-sale and sale date. Other municipalities will keep some of it, just to kind of stay within cash flow parameters, and that's what you guys are doing on this, and Brian will show that cash flow sheet is, we have strategically sort of kept some of it in order to keep within that cash flow projection, to keep you know, the principal and interest payments on the bonds that are out there, and the Moorhead lease, and this wind energy, and sales tax and things like that, to keep the resultant tax levy the way staff and the board has planned for. So what we have done is lowered the bond issue by $560,000. So it went from $16 million of bonds to $15,440,000, but we kept $409,000 and some change of that premium. So it just, now we amortize the whole bond issue to way that cash flow is supposed to look at the end. So you guys are getting what you want at the end of all this. So it's not just a snapshot. It's the whole concept of how you want to pay this bond issue back. What's odd is that you look that you're issuing $15,440,000 of bonds, but you're going to have $16,226,000 of bond proceeds. It's I think you understand it, but it's interesting how the world of public finance and bonds and all these securities work. But I think you have a pretty good team here to get this package together and make sure, well, really, these guys are just terrific. We're just along for the ride. But it was nice. I mean, Shelley was on the call yesterday, you know, Lori, Brian, me, and we strategized this about how we can use that premium to our advantage and stay within the parameters and have a little extra money that we can use to spend on the law enforcement center too. So think that's basically what I was going to talk about, because there may be some questions. I just want to make sure Lori and Brian get their time in here too, but if you have any questions for me
Okay.
on this, let me know.
And we'll see what our administrator has to say.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm already done talking, so.
I kind of figured that. At the end, you're going to say it's a good deal.
Well, yes, and it's a recommendation from us. Hopefully you
Right.
know that. We talked about the various possibilities, and hopefully, I think Todd has explained it very well. We were looking for a $16 million bond. The net effect is about 16.2.
Yep.
And we're not so terribly sure of those earlier years when the sales tax is not built up yet and we have those payments to make on it. And the cost when we finish out this project, we just felt that middle ground was a pretty good way to go on. We didn't want to recommend the acceptance of the $900 and some $1,000 premium, but we felt the premium in that $400,000 to $500,000 range was a good middle ground to go and still stay below the bond limit of the 16 million with the 15.4. And if I can pass this out, you've seen this many times.
So Brian, while you're doing that, in short, this process, we're gaining about $900,000 in cash through this process.
400.
Well,
400 more than
More than you initially, yeah, 400 more than you initially.
well, I thought the premium was 900,000.
Yeah, what we did was we lowered the bond by
Okay,
560.
but had you not done that,
Yeah, you
there'd be
would have had
$900,000.
correct.
So I'm starting off with this 900,000. And we've elected to lower our bond by half of it, and then reserving the other half in cash,
That's right. That's right.
right? So we still have some flexibility while this project goes on, and then also then, like Lori, like you said, in the event that we fall short, maybe with the first sales tax collections or something, we have that little cushion,
We have
right?
room in the front.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to,
Yeah, perfect.
And Mr. Hagan said an important point, Mr. Chair, this morning too, and he talked about the bond rating and the cash flow and the reserves, of keeping our reserves up. Not to say that that's the intent, but we asked specifically yesterday about the premium dollars, and those can be used as our wishes to help our bottom line as well. So we just felt for that interest rate at 2.67 that it just is a comfort zone for us. We're still keeping this project within where we said basically 2 years ago when we come out of the chutes with it. So it's a pretty good comfort zone to be in.
Lori?
So
You
I
concur?
redid this yesterday with all the actual numbers, so what you see there is the final numbers for the jail and the new bond for the LEC, so these are the final numbers using those.
Okay, is that what this?
Yeah.
Is the sales tax in there somewhere?
Well, the far right column, that's kind of the amount that we're looking for from the sales tax, or additional money, other than what we already have planned. We need that much more in. And the estimations for sales tax, they were
Yeah, okay.
1.6 in 2014. So we've been pretty conservative with our estimates on there.
And maybe, Mr. Chair, if we can, we'll just go through this one more time. It takes about 2 minutes is
Okay,
all.
yep.
But if you'll see that, up on top, you see a $36,150,000. That's the bonding that you put out there for the jail. The $15,440 now will be the bond.
And that number
for the long-
before read 16.
We had at 16, that's correct.
Okay.
And then you'll see the principal and the interest on that jail bond, and then the principal and interest on the 15.5, the one that hopefully you'll approve today. And then the total of those two columns, and they're amortized over to 2036. And then where it really gets kind of somewhat interesting is that you'll see the 75% retired debt column. If you remember right, a good chunk of this is being financed by retiring debt. And you're decided to replace the retiring debt with the new debt. That was a timing issue to do these projects. And then you'll see a portion of Moorhead's lease. When we get down to 2022, that's when we start applying $200,000 of that lease agreement towards the payment. And then you've been assessing $50,000 in additional levy dollars each year to make it a very easy increase. I mean, 50,000 is a lot of money, but in the form of the levy, you know where that's coming from, and you know the wind energy of $150,000, and then that last column is the additional dollars that are needed, and we expect that to be fulfilled by the sales tax dollars. But you'll see there's a couple of years it jumps up to 2.2 million or something along those lines, and we may not collect that much sales tax that year, and that's why you'll see up in the earlier years, we started putting that money aside so that we're accumulating some cash in that account to cover those payments of where they fluctuate, or maybe even the sales tax will fluctuate a little bit. So, and if you are short, remember we're continuing to collect that 100% of that retiring debt, and you're only obligating 75% of it at this time. So you've got some flexibility in there as far as making that payment. There's pretty sound assurance that you're going to make that payment every year without having to raise any additional levy dollars to do so.
Yeah, I think, from day one when we talked about this project, what we told our taxpayers of our county was that we were trying to do this without an increase to them in terms of property tax. That was the reason why we sold the sales tax issue, and that's all good. I think we'll have to look at that 75% retirement debt issue in terms of how, in other words, we don't want the levy to change as a result of this project.
Right, and it hasn't so far.
But in terms of the, what I'm getting at in terms of the debt, if you only levy the 75% as opposed to the 100, then it might go down, and then if it has to come back up, then it's going to be a surprise to them. So I just think we need to just, that's a few years down the road, but it's something that I think needs to be watched.
Right. And, Mr. Chair, we have talked about that, and Lori is well aware of that in the assessing of the levy, is that she's leaving it at 100% with your approval, of course.
Right.
But we talk about that every year, that you're
That
obligated.
25% is banked.
You've got that flexibility with that 25% of it, yes.
Okay, good. That's good. Okay.
So with that, Mr. Chair, if there's any questions, we'd certainly entertain any questions from the three of us, or we'd ask for approval of Resolution 2017-42.
Is there just the one resolution? I thought there was two.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I thought there was two, and I talked with Mr. Hagan this morning, and it's only, the second resolution is kind of a repeat of the first one. That's just verifying that you approved it, so.
Any other?
I'll just make a side comment. I know that it's a lot of dollars, but I think it definitely is a good environment with the way interest rates are. I mean, this really could have, because it is a multi-year planning process, things really could have gotten crazy, and hopefully they don't, but I think it's good to see under 3% definitely for right now.
All right, we're.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, resolution number 2017-42. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Todd.
Could I get the chair to sign a couple of proposal forms?
You bet.
Could I just pass them around?
And while we do that, I think we're scheduled to go on a short break.
That'd be great.
We're going to reconvene our meeting here, and our next item is a Highway Department, and Dave has, looks like he's got 4 items for us this morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
All right, Dave, your first is a request for approval for a resolution to waive municipal state aid construction allotment requirements.
So what we have been trying to do, or what we typically do over a certain amount of time, is we get an annual allotment into our municipal state aid account, and usually it's not enough to build a project, and there is capping limits on that. So if we start getting close to that cap limit, which I think is about 3 years allotment or 500,000, and our 3-year allotment is a little higher, then we have a couple of different options. And in the past, what we've done is we've transferred that into the regular state aid account. But those at MnDOT, and I think it's a great idea what they've came up with, they'd rather see that money stay in that municipal account, which you can use in your cities under 5,000, which would be like Dilworth, Barnesville, Holly. And they'd rather see that money stay in there and be used on projects in those cities, communities, which is what we like to do as well. So what they suggested we do is we pass motion on the following resolution that I provided, and it would give us an additional 2 years above that cap. Keep that money in there, and we'll need all those dollars too this coming year in the city of Glendon. So I guess I think it was a good, kind of a good resolution for them to allow us to keep the money where it belongs. And, you know, that way, if you do transfer something out into regular account and for some reason you don't do the project, that those funds may or may not be spent in the small cities. So,
Have we received something from MnDOT in writing that states that we have the approval to do that from their part?
yeah, so Kim De La Rosa sent me Lake County's example, and then I've also talked and communicated with Ted Schenecker, the Assistant Deputy Director at MnDOT, and this is clearly what they want to do. The reason I communicated so much with them is I wasn't sure, you know, at one time the city of Glendon, and they may still wish to look at a 2019 project. Mm-hmm. This resolution allows us to construct an 18 or 19. From what Eric and I are both hearing, I think it will be an 18 project. Doesn't look like waiting a year would benefit. They wouldn't get any additional federal grant monies, or it doesn't make any sense beyond that to extend it a year. So we're kind of back on schedule. All our design work, all our environmental review work, all of our right-of-way work is right on schedule for 2018.
Well, I'm glad they're flexible on this,
Yeah.
and it kind of reminds me of, we have the same thing that we have the revenues from our wheelage tax that we
Sure.
pass down to our local cities, get a portion of that, and we basically have told them the same thing. You can bank it for a certain period of time, and once you do that, we want you to use it.
Yeah, I think we
the
kind of-
purpose of it is to get roads fixed.
That's right. We
Right?
kind of said 7 years unless they had a big project as well. So that
Then-
was kind of our
No,
guidelines.
well, this is good, I think, makes sense. Any other comments? So you're looking for support on this then?
Yeah, approval of the resolution, and we'll get that into them. If we don't get it done by the end of the year, we would see a needs deduction on any allotment over that cap. So we want to make sure we don't get any sort of a deduction on our allotment dollars.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval.
Okay, approval of resolution 2017-39. We have a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We'll move on to item number 2, and that's approval to sell two-way radios.
Yes, on August 9th of last year, we did get approval to move forward with the Armor radio. What's going on? I have it on vibrate. Oh, that's what's going on.
Is that you?
Yeah. It's the Caterpillar salesman.
We can wait.
So we did get approval to move forward with the Armor radios for all of our equipment. We appreciated all the help from Brian Green and the Sheriff's Department. They take the major lead on this. All of our radios have been installed, or at least 95% of them. I think in talking with the radio personnel, best option for the county would be just to put those out on the open market. They no longer function because of the way the radio systems work. These are narrow-banded radios, so I think they're still very valuable to like farming, the farming community. They can put them in their sugar beet trucks and their tractors and things, and I think there's still a pretty good market. So I did get a valuation from Ken By from Radio Connections, and we would just put an ad probably in like Craigslist and maybe the local newspaper, taking kind of sealed bids, or taking, we could sell 1 or 5 or however many we have, I guess, whatever the dollar amount may be. So I'd like to get approval to sell those things with a minimum too. I think Ken gave me a number on them. I think there's like $150 is kind of a minimum price, so that way we're not giving them away. We would have a little reserve on there as well.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, Dave, we'll move on to the filling the vacancy of a diesel mechanic.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did get a 2-week notice from our diesel mechanic. He's been there just over a year. Really good employee too, got along with everyone, required almost no training, and, you know, he's just kind of getting used to our system, and got winter coming rather quickly, so it was quite unfortunate to see that, but I guess you can't fault him. He has a better opportunity, so he's chosen different routes. So I guess I would really like to see replacement on this. We've only got one additional staff in the shop. We've got a shop foreman and a diesel mechanic. The shop foreman also is required to take care of our joint facility as well as our other outlying shops. So it's more than just the repair work for the one guy. So it does, you know, by the time we advertise, interview, and then the selected candidate would give his 2 weeks at their place, it could take up to, you know, 4 weeks. Maybe.
No, we gotta get that going.
Make a motion to approve the vacancy.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, yeah, that one is important to get right away, Dave. All right, so agenda number 4, recommend approval of grant funding application and legal sponsor resolution for the Agassiz Recreational Trail as per the DNR Trail Assistance Program.
So this is for the 5 miles of trail we have north of Ullin up to the county line. At one time, it was kind of a joint trail between Clay, Norman, and Polk counties with a, I don't know what was the best word, Frank and Kevin, kind of an unofficial sponsor. There was a entity that managed the trail. Now it's broken apart by all 3 counties. We've actually approved this very same grant application at least 3 years in a row now. So this is the annual application that we put together as well. So it's Form 1, Form 2. I'm not sure if you see in Form 2, it's only the dollar amounts. I basically put the exact same dollar amounts on the grant that I did last year. And it's got some monies for administration and some monies for maintenance. The first couple of years, we really didn't have a lot of maintenance on the trail, but we've since hired Norman County. They've asked us if we would hire them to mow, so it costs a few $100s. They kind of come down with their mowing equipment. There's also the Mudslingers OHV club up in that area that does a little work for us, and their dollars are eligible as well, so we've hired them to do a few things. And then there is some bridge decking on the bridge just north of Ullin, and we replaced all new material on there. So all those dollars I do submit annually to the DNR and get reimbursed that way. So we do have a application form, if approved, I guess, that myself and Brian both sign, and then there's a resolution as well that accompanies that.
This is the trail that was disbanded before, right? And each county took on their own, is that?
Yes, yeah. We deeded all the separate parts to the county in which the trail lied. It had been joint ownership previously, but now we each own the stretch that falls within our county.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. Anything else for us?
I don't think so. I know our guys were out a little bit last weekend with the snowfalls, and this morning a little bit looking around. They said they didn't see anything that looked too slippery out there, so.
I received communication from you that you've taken down some stop signs on
Yeah.
County 9?
County 9, yep, used to be County Road 95. There was an east-west stop sign years ago.
It was a four-way stop,
And then we turned it into a four-way stop in the more recent years, and realized that with our roadway going north and south, being the major traffic traveled roadway, we decided to pull those signs. And then at our highway committee, we discussed it with regard to safety, and we thought maybe if we put up cross traffic does not stop on the east-west signs that are remaining, it would maybe alert them to the fact that something's changed there a little bit, or to take note that the north-south road is no longer a stop condition. So I haven't heard any fallback on that. I haven't had any residents call. I thought maybe the locals that lived right at the intersection may call.
I haven't heard anything.
I received one call, and they're very appreciative of the sign being removed.
Okay.
Well, it's good then. All right, very good. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, guys. All right, next we have Red River Recovery Center, statement of need. Rhonda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rhonda. You have a guest with you?
I do. This is Stacy Keeping. Stacy is currently the program manager at Red River Recovery Center. And I did provide in your packet a brief summary and then some information regarding Red River Recovery Center. But the bottom line to our topic today is that Red River Recovery Center has been operating in the Dilworth location since 2005 under Deb Borstead. She is selling her business to Stacy and her husband Brian Keeping, and they want to continue the operation as is, but as a part of that, the whole licensing process has to start from square one. And rules require that the county board in which the facility is located to provide that statement of need. So we're really looking for your permission for me to articulate that and to provide that to Stacy and the Department of Human Services so that license can be renewed under their name. Red River Recovery Center, actually, for those of you that maybe recall, back in '74, they were operating in Barnesville. They had a men's halfway house. They added a women's halfway house, I think it was '99, and then they closed both of those and relocated and purchased the spot where it currently sits in Dilworth. We've, as the county, have made multiple referrals to Red River Recovery Center over the years, and you know, obviously the benefit is for our folks that are living in Clay County. They can receive those services close to home, stay connected to their service providers, stay connected to support groups in the community, and successfully transition back into their home county. So I'm going to just open it up for any questions for Stacy, or if Stacy wants to talk a little bit about the plan and the status, the purchase.
Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning. Plan is really just a status quo. I would like this to be seamless. It's my husband's mother that owns it now, so it's staying in the family. I've worked there since we started part-time because I have an education background. So I left teaching 6 years ago, I believe, worked under Deb for the first 2 years, and now I'm program director. So I've been there 6 years full-time. Four of those years I've pretty much been the boss, I guess. So yeah, I think it's a level of care that's really, you just can't find everywhere. Low intensity programs are really tough to find. I think, you know, they're not particularly a high funding source, so I think most treatment centers would prefer the high and low, or high and medium intensity programming, because they get paid a little more for that. So referrals are plentiful, for sure. We have waiting lists most of the time. So in my opinion, there's a real need for it.
Do you just take Clay County residents, or do you?
No, we take from all over Minnesota, really. I think Rhonda had asked for a percentage of our clients from 2016, I believe, that were Clay County, and I think it was 26%. So the other 75% come from all over the state of Minnesota. Private insurance doesn't fund our program at low intensity, so it's basically Minnesota residents that can qualify for our program.
So for us, most often, depending on the needs of the individuals we serve, but they may start out, go to treatment in a higher intensity program. It might be some of the other facilities, Anchorage located in Clay County, some of the facilities in Fargo, or even across the state, depending on the needs of the person. And they may complete that program and then come down to the lower intensity program that's offered at Red River. And that's one of the nice pieces to have that right here in our county. So it may be that our folks have to seek that intensity elsewhere, but then we have this option here in our county.
So these people that are in need of a facility like this, then they qualify for, is it a combination of county and state funding, or?
Yeah, many
can
of
you
them.
explain that for us, please?
Yep, many of them qualify for the Consolidated Chemical Dependency Treatment Fund, which is a combination of state and federal, but county dollars as well. So for every dollar that we authorize in chemical health treatment, we spend between 15% and 20%, depending on.
Comes from Clay County.
Yes, right, and that is in our budget. We wouldn't anticipate that to change with this new change in ownership and licensure, so.
But some alternatives could be way worse than investing.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a really critical in what we see, in our opinion, for services for chemical health, because, you know, so often folks might go to those high-intensity programs and be discharged then with nothing, maybe back into their home community with supports of AA or maybe some outpatient. But this provides that residential base, so they can go from high-intensity residential and programming to another lower-intensity residential and then back into the community. And we think that's a recipe for success and reduces you know, people's cycle through the high-intensity programs. So we would hate to see a loss of this service in our county for our folks. And like Stacy said, the majority of the referrals come from our neighboring counties.
Yeah.
And so we kind of serve our region, which is what we want to do.
So the neighboring counties that have people here, that comes out of their
Yes.
Consolidated fund, not Clay County's?
Right, yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Commissioner Mojo?
Just a comment, as we kind of talked about the mental health component to our jail, chemical dependency is really a part of that, and we had been scratching our brains in how we wanted to implement some sort of chemical dependency treatment with that population, and granted, that's not 100% of the population, obviously, that you see, but from my perspective, to have something that isn't a county-run program in the county is really in our best interest. It's your liability, I guess, and not ours, but obviously if it serves county people, it's a good thing, so thank you.
Yeah, and I want to comment, I happen to know a few people that have gone through the program there, and it's been a very good thing for them. And so I can testify, knowing some people who have gone through what you do there, and it's helped them immensely, and thereby helping everybody in our county by working with that. So I believe there's a need, certainly. I would certainly.
I'll make the motion to approve the statement of support. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, so thank you, and hopefully that all works well, and you'll get your license change over. And
Everyone cross their fingers.
thank you for what you do.
Process.
Thank you.
So you let me know when.
Sure. All right, do we have something with the sheriff here, or?
The closed session.
Oh, they're part of it, okay, part of the closed session. All right, very good. All right, at this time, we are scheduled to go into, right at 10 o'clock, how about that? We're scheduled to go into closed session to discuss Clay County litigation progress and strategy for county client privileges, so, and that's statute 13D.05 sub 3B. All right, do we have a motion to close?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right.
Move to close.
Okay, we have a motion to close for labor union discussions.
Did I hear a second?
Yeah, it was.
Frank.
Second. Okay.
Yeah, okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now back in closed session. All right, we are reconvened after our closed sessions, and the remaining item on our agenda is committee reports, and we'll start to my right this morning, Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I attended the Diversion Land Management meeting on October 25th. It was a brief meeting in terms of things that we'd covered. There was a discussion in regards to if we felt the Diversion Authority should move forward in discussing how they wanted to mold what easements would look like. I think generally we're in favor of that discussion going forward. However, a phone call that I had later on in the week, it seems as though the thought process is that they want to put that on hold until whatever the task force determines from the governor's task force. The next day, I had a conference call with Lakes and Prairies in regard to some property, potential property purchase that we had given the go-ahead to move forward on. It actually was sold to another party, so we had a call to talk about that. The next day, Friday, while you attended the district meeting in Fergus Falls, I attended the all-staff training for Lakes and Prairies at the Wanzik Center in Fargo. A pretty extensive training that they put on to help staff members deal with real-life situations, so I appreciate that. I also had then, following that, MetroCog Executive Committee meeting where we discussed separation package that the policy board had talked about in regards to the executive directors. So we did have a meeting on that. On October 30, November 1st, I was in meetings all day at MSU with the governor's task force. I think that my general takeaway from that is that we are having good and legitimate conversations. Yes, we are looking at things that have been previously talked about, but I think in terms of moving forward, it's important to bring some people up to speed on where we've been. So we did decide that we were going to adopt the 100-year period of record protection level that the Corps has, and that was on recommendation from both of the cities. I believe the county was, that was their hope as well. We can always protect at a higher level, but that's the level that we wanted to move forward on. The next day I had a joint powers meeting in Dilworth where we had a great presentation from the VA hospital in regards to services that they provide to the community. Also an update from Kurt Cannon from our county VSO. There's a really great, as he said earlier, communication between identifying needs and people in the community, especially Clay County residents, and in terms of what the VA offers, the river really isn't a barrier because it's their services are just provided to them. But anyhow, it was a good discussion, and then we talked a little bit further about planning for the intergovernmental retreat. I then had a hour-long task force call with the governor's office in St. Paul to make sure all of the Minnesota parties, if any questions had arisen during the previous conversations, we clarified them, and I think we are requesting some maps for some people, so I think it's good dialogue going forward. I also had another MetroCog meeting the next day to discuss the advertisement for the executive director that has now been advertised for going forward. We're hoping to fill that or start the interview process in the next 30 to 60 days. And I also had a meeting with Lakes and Prairies, an executive meeting in regards to some possible HR issues. That, I believe, concludes my reports.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Wayland?
Well, let's see, I had a solid waste meeting, and they had various updates there, and budget discussion on the internal service fund, and they had a residential waste sort again. And you participate again, Frank? That sorting the garbage, you didn't do it this time.
I did it one time.
That was
I got my film. I know how they do it now.
You got your landfill.
I got a picture of you doing it.
Thank you.
But I think Shannon sent out a thing after they were done. The good news is that the amount of recyclables they found went from like 23% to 12% or something like that. So, I mean, it shows that the single sort is actually working really well. So, and then let's see, had a diversion authority meeting, closed session, one on litigation issues. We had a detention meeting to set up our plans for the all-member counties meeting coming in December. I had a meeting in St. Paul again on the 2911 rules for the Department of Corrections and representing AMC on that. And we're making progress on that, and of course our goal is to make rules and change rules so that counties can actually accomplish what is set out. And let's see, had the AMC District 4 meeting in Fergus Falls, and I think that went well. We had updates from all the counties and from AMC staff members. That was it for me.
All right, very good.
It's the only meeting I had was the District 4 meeting that Grant just referred to. We found out there that of the 11 counties, the increases in levy were from 0 to 9.5%. You know, I mean, we're in the lower part of it, you know, but that we're looking at. But some counties are up almost to 10% there. Some of the counties are switching their health insurance to a different carrier, you know, looking at that, and their insurance increases are ranging from 23% to 47%. I guess that's pretty much what I got for that. Okay. That was it.
On Wednesday, October 25th, I attended the meeting of the Diversion Finance Committee, and we're dealing with the possibilities after the stand-down order. And there were a few buyout properties that were in the process of being acquired prior to the stand-down order and that have subsequently been closed subsequent to the stand-down order. On Friday, October 27th, I attended the AMC District 4 meeting in Fergus Falls along with 3 other commissioners. And on Thursday, November 2nd, I attended the Children's Mental Health Local Advisory Committee meeting, part of the Clay County Collaborative, and we discussed the 2017-2018 work plan. We also had a review of the bylaws and reports from providers. That concludes my report.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, on the 23rd, I had the diversion public outreach meeting and the land management meeting that day. The public outreach meeting, we did discuss further the ongoing work of the task force and updates there. There was some project status updates on things that are still progressing in accordance with the temporary injunction that the judge did, and that's for, I believe we got an update on all the stuff that's going on in Cass County and some road bypass and stuff that's going on. Land management, Commissioner Mojo reported on that. The following day then, on the Thursday, I had a solid waste advisory meeting. Commissioner Wayland reported on all of those items. There's going to be Minn Kota's doing a no bag day coming up where they're going to just, talk about using alternatives to plastic bags. There'll be some promotion coming out on that. And then later that afternoon, I attended the Diversion Authority meeting. And again, very, very little on there. We got some progress updates on, again, some in-town work that's part of the diversion project that are being completed. Then Friday was the District 4 meeting. I don't think we need to say any more on what's been said. Then on the Monday, we had a jail construction or correctional facility and LEC update. And all seems to be going well. I noticed originally we mentioned that the cells were going to be starting to be delivered in early November, and that's backed up to the 3rd week of
Later in November, yeah.
in November, but it still won't impact the overall timing of the project. So that's the biggest issue there, other than the fact that then the boiler issue we talked about earlier today. I did go and sit in on almost the entire meeting of the diversion task force last Wednesday at MSU, yeah. And interesting discussion. And by the way, for the public, those meetings are all fully recorded.
They're on
and-
YouTube.
And they're on YouTube. I would encourage people to really watch that. It's a lot of work going there. All right, and then the Clay County Joint Powers meeting as well, and Commissioner Mojo gave a good report on that. And we did have a juvenile detention meeting on last Tuesday, as Commissioner Whalen said, and it was to plan for this all-county deal, and if you want to put on your calendars, that's been set for Monday, December the 11th at 9:30 a.m., and that's going to be at CCRI. So hopefully you can all make
The
that.
task force is that day.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right,
What's the name of that group, that meeting?
That's it's the regional, West Central Juvenile Detention Center. It's a all-county meeting. It's going to be a public meeting. And that concludes my report. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to follow up on that West Central Regional, it's on the back sheet of your agenda, the address and things, where it's at and the time. So that'll be published. So that is no problem there. Attended new hire orientation. We had quite a group this last time because we hadn't had it for a little while, and I usually spend about probably half hour, 45 minutes with the new hires. Construction meeting, I have really nothing to add. I think it went well, and we're moving forward in a very positive way. And it was mentioned earlier, but the architect, construction engineers, and then Commissioner Campbell mentioned this morning that the transition team will give an update next week then to everybody, so that you can certainly ask questions and find out exactly what's going on there. Juvenile expansion project meeting was held, and that's already been reported on. We had 2 or 3 bond reviews, discussions with Ellers, but we had the big one that Mr. Hagan talked about this morning was about an hour interview with bond counsel. They're out of Chicago, and Lori and I handled that within the last week and a half, actually, something like that. It went fairly well. They asked a lot of questions. It went back, there's about a 2-page questionnaire that they send out ahead of time. I guess typical, some personnel issues and a couple different notes, taken some time this last time period. We did have another land management office meeting, and again, that's to discuss on the staff level, would there be advantages, disadvantages of trying to merge together some of the functions under the current system that we have. And particularly, one that drew a lot of attention to the committee was moving planning and zoning down to second floor and integrating them into some of those offices down there. And we spent a lot of time on that. There seemed to be a pretty strong consensus of the committee that should happen, and should happen fairly soon. But again, before that comes to the full board, we'll bring that to the PIC committee or something along those lines, and for discussion at the board level. We had a meeting, I think it was mentioned by the commissioners, and maybe it was last time, but office space, reference to family service, juvenile expansion, and how we can put all pieces together there. That's moving together quite well. JPA, Joint Powers meeting was mentioned last Thursday morning. At management team meeting to discuss a lot of the topics that we're talking about here. We have a little training every month in regards to that. I did sit in on the diversion board meeting. It was mostly a closed session in regards to that. Had diversion advisory board meeting last Friday morning, and then we had another lengthy conversation, I guess, with Ellers yesterday on the bond sale and all the particulars. So with that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will be adjourned.